So if you only get song 6, then you're getting the end of the last song going to this song. You're like, well, what's the? It's kind of weird. I can see that. Like, I don't know where this is coming from, but if you heard
those are
5
the
or 6,
most memorable albums. I think the ones that you could listen to all the way through.
I think so too, and I think there's a certain value to that. So I always love to use the example of Star Wars, and this is going to sound like a weird like movie to music analogy, but I'm going to go ahead and jump.
They
into
all
this.
link up somehow.
Okay. So one of the best things about Star Wars when I saw it, and I was born in 1976. Star Wars came out, I think, in 77. So I was 1. So I've basically grown up with Star Wars, not unlike many, many people.
You saw it when it first came out?
I didn't. I was 1. But I saw it when I was like 4.
You don't know that?
I might have. It's quite possible. So I do not remember a time when I was not used to Star Wars. And one of the most interesting things about the original movie was that they would talk about, in Empire Strikes Back, the time Han Solo ran into that bounty hunter on Ord Mantell. Or the time that Luke Skywalker wanted to go to Tashi Station to pick up some converters for his power cells or something like that.
Right.
So there are all these references to other things that happen. So there's this phrase called in medias res, which means in the now. Mm-hmm. It's Latin for in the now. So the idea behind having all of these songs run together is that when a song like We'll Fly Again picks up and you're in the middle of a numbers transition from I don't know what. So there is this bass line going on and then there are these numbers going over it. The listener goes, what the fuck did I miss? Mm-hmm. Right? There's like, wait a minute, this started in the middle. There must have been a before and there must have been an after. So the idea is to encourage people to sort of go backwards and forwards by just starting the song right there. And I think that something like Star Wars does that very well. You look at somebody cool like Boba Fett and you say, where the fuck did Boba Fett come from?
Right, they never really introduced the character like background or anything, but you like him, you're like this guy's awesome, you're like, whatever, you know.
Right. And you get the sense that this story is taking place in a world that is larger than what you're seeing. That there is a canvas below the lens and you have this little tiny lens on the thing and there's actually a thing underneath it. So I'm always trying to sort of create that effect with the album. The idea that the songs run into each other. So they never start exactly at the beginning when X starts. There's always a little element of what came before and a little element at the end of what's going to come after.
It's nice.
That's very Pink Floyd-ish. Like when you I remember one of the first times I listened to Pink Floyd, I did not understand when one song started and one ended, like until like you broke it down and tried to learn it, I guess, you know. Then you're like, oh wait, no, this is time. Wait, no, this is this is
time's a perfect example, right? Because the clocks, does it start when the clock starts?
Where does it start? Where does it end? Where's breathe is over here, like where, like.
And the truth is, Pink Floyd did not concern themselves.
They didn't
with
care
the song
about that,
start.
right?
They were like, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this weird thing with this like
so
synthesizer.
awesome, right?
Then we're going to do some clocks, and then we're going to go bang.
And not a lot of bands are doing that. I mean, the last time I heard, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, for me, it was like Local H. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They did a little bit of that going on where it's like the songs are like twirling into each other a little bit. And I haven't heard, I don't know, maybe you guys.
For me, Fish had an album called Rift. And every song seemed to like flow into one and out to another.
Yeah, and if you've ever seen any live Dead shows, they're just jams that eventually become songs.
I put them in there with the Pink Floyd-ish. I was trying to go more modern, but that again, that's.
I think also it's like 9 Inch Nails does a lot of that too. Things will just turn into soundscapes, and then suddenly, we're in a song now.
Right.
And I feel like another good example is a band like Radiohead. They are very good at like making their songs happen in a place. Like, so if you listen to a Radiohead song, especially on their latter albums, it doesn't sound like the place they're happening is in a studio. It sounds like the place they're happening is some special other world beyond place. It's like not a room somewhere. It's happening, I don't know, in the mind's eye kind
of. That's what I was going to say. It's some ethereal, like a other dimension.
So speaking of the recording process, you guys recorded it here in this house?
A couple different houses.
This has been recorded in 3 different houses.
But you are correct in saying they were generally Jeremy's house.
Well, the drums were recorded in my house because I had my drums set up.
The basses were in Jeremy's previous house.
Bass and guitar were probably in Jeremy's previous house. Yeah, the drums we had to, because it took so long to record the drums because oh my God, I had to fucking play the same thing 40 times before I get the take that was right. But it took us at least a month and a half to record the drums, and I had to set up we had a baby gate around the drums, so my infant at the time wouldn't go crawling in and mess with a single chord.
Right.
Yeah, it's very rock and roll.
Oh yeah, so you can keep it. So you can keep the same throughout the whole album.
Correct.
Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
Like trying to maintain.
Yeah.
Like, that's tough.
But it was a very unique. It's a very uniquely shaped room that gave it, I think, maybe a unique sound. I mean, it's not that much, but
they always do though. Like whatever environment you're in, kind of give it its own.
It was not a square room. It's a pentagonal room that he has. It's like a Florida room. So none of the walls actually have like accurate reflections off of one another. So this is going to sound really weird, but this is like for anybody who works in a studio, I think they'll understand this. As soon as I saw the room, I got excited about the possibilities.
Because it's going to be unique. It's not going to be like everything else.
I was like, this is going to sound
little
right.
This is going to sound a little unique. Yeah. That's exactly right, Rico.
And
that's exactly what I said.
The wall behind the drum kit where we set up isn't really a wall. It's vertical blinds that open up like into the living room. So there's like big vertical wooden blinds that you open up, and it just the sound, the light, the air goes into the living room, into the rest of the house. So it's almost like a 3/4 room of walls, and most of it is windows, which we put the blinds on.
Definitely gonna have some weird bounces going on, like some bass bouncing off.
It was exactly.
But you had like a really good tight sound, but can you pull that a bit?
So here are a couple of secrets about the drum recording process that I sort of went into. First of all, the reflections in the room were insane. So what we had a room that would reflect sound. So sound would definitely bounce off of things. It was not a dead room, but it was also not a room that was square, so the sound would reflect back and forth in the same medium. It actually was better than that. The sound would go in one direction and then bounce in the opposite direction, so it was like a perfect drum room. I could not have been happier with that result. Right. The second thing that I did is I used a lot of Beat Detective on Pro Tools to make sure that everything was lined up, make sure that everything was on metronome. And Sean played some great drum parts. Like they moved very, very little between the time that I used Beat Detective to line them up and everything else. The third thing that I did was an idea that I got from a lady named Sylvia Massey. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but she's a famous producer. She worked on Tool's first album, Undertow.
Wow.
She's worked on a lot of famous albums. And basically what I did is I sort of got to a point where I had mixed the album as well as I could. And I said, guys, I would really like to bring in somebody who has more experience. Right. We already have the tracks. We've tracked it. We've done a wonderful job. I would like to hear from a professional,
different set of ears.
Exactly, what she thinks. And so, she was kind enough to listen to all of our albums. I spent some time on Skype with her.
Wow,
and I spoke to her. We had about a 45-minute conversation.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, she made about 5 recommendations, one of which was, and this is crazy, taking Sean's drums. And she said, what I really want to do is I want to get a stronger room mic on Sean's drums. I want you to take them and I want you to play them through a guitar amp distorted. And then I want you to put the mic at the other end of the room, and that is going to create an ambient drum sound, the likes of which you've never heard before.
What?
Yeah, because the one thing in our recording of the drums is that we were limited in our inputs, and we didn't have enough inputs for a room mic. We got the drums mic'd up really well with the overheads in each drum, but we didn't have a room mic, and the way that Jeremy did it with the room mic actually sounded much better than any actual room mic in that room would have made it, because basically put it like down the end of one long hallway, right?
Well, it was in my Florida room, which is about a 15 by 8 foot room, which you guys have been in, so you've seen it before. I just took a little Vox amp, an AC-15. I put it at one end. I ran the completed drum track, the completed edited drum track, out to the input of the Vox amp. I put it through the dirty channel of the Vox amp. I put a microphone in the other corner of the room up against the window, and I just captured the reflected sound, the sound bouncing back and forth off of those walls.
Now, is that on every one of the tracks or on some of the tracks?
Everyone.
That's on every single track.
And I'll tell you, when listening to the tracks before and after, because obviously I listen to the drums the most when I'm listening to the tracks.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah.
It made a huge difference.
Yeah.
It was amazing, the
That's
change
crazy.
that made.
Like,
So are you going to do something on your live shows to give it a distortion?
No, I'm just going to still sit behind the drums and bang them like a
but I
Neanderthal.
think it's different. Like on a recording, like in a live, you get a different. You're hearing something completely different, and it's when you get those recording that in the in the mix, there's so much missing from like a live thing. I think that's probably a little bit of what that's doing. Like we're just mimicking something that happens naturally in your ear when you're hearing it live. You know.
But going back to like where you like to play, let's talk about where you guys are playing next. Because you have an album release, you have a couple shows coming up.
Which the topic of today's, which was you guys, was also New Year, New Me. No, I'm just kidding. New Year, right? So everybody's we have our goals for the year and everything like that. And I think that as you as a band, probably, I'm sure from everything we've talked about, you guys are pretty. I'm sure the calendar has been set up till next year probably already, right?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. for at least a couple months the calendar's been set up.
There you go.
Yeah, we have a bunch of shows coming up. We have a show live we're playing at the Dive Bar on January 30th. That show usually starts around 9. It's actually Jody from Garage to Nowhere's birthday, so shouts to Jody.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah,
I'll be there
see
too.
you guys.
She's fantastic. We're going to rock a little set there. Our album is dropping on February 1st.
Nice.
And let me say that again. Our album is dropping on February 1st.
Not the ice.
Incidentally, where can you go and get it if you were looking into
where
such
is it?
things as
Great
an album
question.
being dropped on? What was it?
So we will have copies of our album.
February 1st.
We will have copies of our album available for sale on whenever we play a live show, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Our album is also available to stream for free on Spotify and on Apple Music. So if you guys don't feel like buying a CD, my recommendation would be stream our first and second album and check it out.
140,000 times.
140,000
At
times,
least.
right?
We've established a number
This
here.
is the number here. Yeah, this is our goal.
Just for the listeners of the podcast, even though it officially drops February 1st, if they come out to the Dive Bar on the 30th, we will have some. We will have some. They might have some albums there for you.
Oh,
You might be able to get it before it officially drops, just for
sounds good.
Jody's birthday.
There you go. Look at you, Jody.
So we are doing a show that February 1st. We're doing a show that Friday night at the Poorhouse.
Cool.
It's going to be a pretty late show. We're going to start at 11. We're playing with the Bitter Blue Jays, which is actually
they're
one of
awesome.
our favorite bands.
Yeah, I love those dudes.
I like watching them play. So
Yeah.
I
don't really
basically-
know them either. I just have seen them a couple times, and yeah, they're really good.
I basically called MJ, their drummer, and was like, "Would you guys please play a show with us because we enjoy playing with you guys?"
That's awesome.
And, yeah, and they agreed. So they've been really, really cool. But our album drops that day, so I guess that's kind of an album.
Our release.
Yeah, it is a release party, yeah.
And there we go.
Exactly. We have another show. This is kind of going to be an unusual show. It's by a local artist named Amanda Camacho, and it's going to be on February 22nd at a coffee shop called Bean to Brew.
Oh, I've heard of that place. I haven't gone.
It's really cool. What she's asked to do is she's asked to actually do like a live painting demonstration.
Cool.
So the idea is she's going to start with a blank canvas, and we're going to basically play a 20-minute set, and she's going to turn that canvas into a painting as we play.
As you play.
That's so cool.
That's really cool.
It should be really fun. We're actually really excited about doing it because it's a little unusual for us.
Right.
So what time is that show
Like an
start?
art performance.
That show starts at 6. It's going to be from 6 to 8. We're actually doing 3 separate 20-minute sets, and she's going to do 3 separate paintings.
That's
so
awesome.
we're working with her to make sure that she has
Can't wait, man.
she has the correct soundtrack to produce her art.
We definitely should get like pictures of everything and put them on the site
Yeah.
for the so everybody can see.
Awesome.
Listen,
you
I
guys
think
got
that would be
going on.
really cool. And
Yeah.
then the last show we're doing is a show. We'll probably schedule more in the meantime, but we have a show right now up in Fort Pierce on March 16th, where it looks like we're going to be doing that show with Sometimes Chad. We're just waiting for final confirmation. I love Sometimes Chad. I think they're a fantastic band. I don't know if you guys have had a
Nah,
chance
I've never
to
got
see
to
it.
see them. I've seen them on on the bills of like a bunch of stuff, so I know they've been around for a while, but I never got to.
They're
check 'em
great.
out,
I
so.
mean, and one of the things about being in a local band is you get an opportunity to see these other bands.
Yeah.
And when you see one that you really like, you're like, oh, I want to make sure we play with these guys again. I want to make sure we reach out to them on social media and do as much as possible.
It's a great way to expose yourself to better local music than what you would find through normal channels because you just happen to be there that night.
Mm-hmm. And which is it's funny that you say that because I was just thinking about this the other day. Like when we have like even at the when we get like a get together Garage Nowhere, I've been everybody who's on Spotify, all the bands that we know, all the bands that we hang out with, they're all on there.